Imagine a world without HIV. At American Gene Technologies, we think we're on the eve of just that.
Imagine living in a world free from all sickness, just only happiness, joy, and laughter 24/7. A world that can never be shaken by a pandemic. The only way for this to begin is if we defeat the greatest pandemic of all, HIV.
Correct that there were some people who were found to have a natural immunity to the HIV virus, the HIV, is that correct?
Yes, that is true.
So were those
There's a
people
couple-
collected, so, an I Am Legend scenario with
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point. So with HIV, there's two ways that rare people can actually become resistant. And one way is because their bodies are genetically missing the receptor for HIV. So HIV, in order to enter cells, has to bind to something on human cells. And some human beings are missing that receptor. And these are people who are rarely resistant. They don't get any infection at all. Other people got infected, but their bodies very rarely made what they call a broadly neutralizing antibody that was effective. And both of those approaches are being used going forward and have already, in some cases, helped people. They actually took the stem cells out of a human being, because the stem cells, they're what they call the blood stem cells or the hematopoietic stem cells. They make your blood cells, including your T cells. We all know that HIV attacks your T cells. So what they did was they took a poor patient who was suffering from HIV because the HIV was killing their T cells, and they took out their stem cells. They knocked out the HIV receptor, and then they gave them the stem cells back.
Whoa.
And now this person's own stem cells were now engineered, genetically engineered to be resistant to HIV because they no longer had the receptor, and they repopulated themselves and they were cured of HIV. Now that's a very hard treatment to do to thousands or hundreds of thousands of people because that's a genetic manipulation and a stem cell transplant, but it actually works. So you're absolutely right. Just like I Am Legend, there are the rare HIV people who are immune via these two different approaches. One is antibodies, which is related to what we're doing for COVID, and the other is, missing the receptor. And they've taken both approaches and they're trying to use them to help in the HIV situation.
But if I don't have a receptor, it doesn't mean I'm warding off HIV. It means I'm not affected by it. But does that mean I can still carry it?
No, well, the beauty is the way we all get infected is just a few viruses enter into our body. And if the virus sticks to our cells, enters into them through the receptor, and then replicates, makes many, many copies of itself, that's how it continues to survive in our body. If it has nothing to stick to, it floats around for a little while and then it just dies. So the people who don't have the HIV receptor are not only resistant for themselves, but the virus just naturally, the few viruses that will get into you die out and you don't make any more. The way you infect somebody else, the way viruses work is they use us as a host to make many copies of themselves and then spread themselves out, often through our secretions, through our cough, and so forth. So if you're not making much virus, you're not going to spread it. So those people are resistant to the virus and they will never spread it.
So this is what they talk about when they...
Gene and cell therapy is a new drug development modality that opens opportunities to get into the root causes of disease and even allows us to reprogram immune cells to be effective against HIV in a way that a natural body is unable to be effective. What we've developed is something called a functional cure. If this works, it could mean that HIV-infected individuals could go from lifelong antiretroviral therapy to basically living a normal life.
Our program is putting forth a highly innovative product that hasn't been seen before in the clinical world of HIV medicine. HIV is a unique virus for many reasons. One of the most important is that it attacks T cells. T cells are the drivers of your immune responses. And that means without T cells, you're unable to combat viral infections. So we have to make a change in those cells while we're working with them. And in our case, we put a very tiny amount of DNA into each cell, and that little bit of DNA programs that cell to resist HIV.
And so as a result, those T cells can do their job. They can clear HIV like you clear a cold. We can take HIV T cells and we can make them immune to HIV. Once they're back in your body, you have an immune system that's actually capable of fighting this otherwise very fragile virus. And we believe that's going to lead to a functional cure.